you feeling, Rick?
Couldn't be better. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day. I feel like, and we got Richard. He's going to co-host with us too. Richard Davis out of the Buckhead office.
Hey, hey.
Um, and if
All
we
right.
can pin him, that would be great. Thank you. I feel like this was like the most jam-packed weekend anyone could possibly have. Whether it's maybe I got a lot of calls and texts of people showing houses, getting listing appointments, or getting new listings. Putting people on contract. Anyone out there got a little business this weekend? Some good news, some there. Um, I've heard about we had people who went to May the 4th parties. Oh, good, Dana. Lots of business. Always expect lots of business from you. We had May the 4th parties. I heard of an agent who went to a May the 4th party and got some leads from that. Who watched the Kentucky Derby with that nose finish race? That was pretty cool. And then I heard that some people on this computer screen enjoyed the Shaky Knees Festival a little bit. So
until the hour-long deluge of rain. that
that's what I heard. I heard it came down hard and fast. So
I kept thinking to myself, if only we had some rain to knock this pollen down. And then about 40 minutes into it, I changed my mind. I want pollen back, please.
that's right. Your wish was the command. So
Yeah,
Richard, how was
right.
your weekend?
Weekend was good. I definitely had a May the 4th party as well. And it's funny because I talked to my dad yesterday and he's like, you doing anything for Cinco de Mayo? I was like, oh, I forgot it was Cinco de Mayo. It's like,
And there was Cinco de Mayo. I know someone who went to
yeah,
Cinco de Mayo.
May the 4th has seemed to take over Cinco de Mayo as far as like culturally, parties go and things of that nature. So
Jam packed, jam packed. So super cool. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna do a little sharing of the screen. And okay, and everybody knows this about me. Like y'all got to give me grace and forgiveness when it comes to. I always have other people run my technology, have always had. So you just give me a little grace here if I don't show you everything completely perfectly. But let me go ahead and go over these stats with y'all. And maybe you can I went ahead and took Fulton County and took us to the past few weeks. Richard and Rick, what do you observe with these stats here?
you can go, Rick.
I mean, the active count clearly is starting to climb. I mean, it's been hovering and averaging in the 6 to 8 range and now 1,050. So the supply
Yep.
side argument is starting to wane a little. It's clearly not balanced, but it's going in the right direction if you want a balanced market. And I think that's healthy for buyers and sellers when it is.
Mm-hmm.
Pending's holding steady. So it's not like we're adding houses. There is a disproportionate growth number in active to pending, but it's not nothing to be alarmed about. So steady Freddy looks like the actives and the even on the close side, wow, close skyrocketed, but could be the
Yeah,
product of end of the month rollover.
probably so.
I think
Thoughts,
that is,
Richard? Go ahead.
I think that's what we're seeing. When you look at, all of the numbers, they are outside of the pending, a lot of them are up. The close is definitely up, but also when you look at the expired, you look at the trends as far as the number of expired. I think we're in a completely sensitive market right now, sensitive to pricing, sensitive to area. So I think just our overall discussion today is going to be around being the economist of choice. You all have tagged that, for years now. And I think us communicating with our clients has to be a lot more specific than it has to be in the past. If we're talking about a general market, I think we're doing our clients a disservice. We have to be a lot more specific because you see a lot more expireds and withdrawn. And I think it has to do with agents not having as strong of a discussion specifically with clients about their area and what's going on in the market.
Yeah.
Not everybody's
Well,
an automatic winner, right?
Right,
It's where expertise pays dividends.
for sure.
let's go ahead here. Let me pull up DeKalb, and then I want to get us into like Cobb and Gwinnett, some of our larger suburban counties. So to see where the trend is here. Um, Again, I love that close. It probably is holdover, but
Mhm.
thoughts on this one?
Same when it comes to the expireds. I mean, outside of what's that, April 8th, I mean, the expireds are up. So I think, a lot of it is the fact that it is the beginning of the month, but at the same time, I think it trends a lot more like the Atlanta market as far as having to be a lot more specific in those conversations, or you're going to find your clients hanging on the markets. I just actually got from a coffee with another agent, and they were seeing the same thing as far as like some of their listings that would sell pretty quickly are starting to hang on the market a lot longer than they expected.
Mm-hmm. Let's pull up Cobb and Gwinnett real quick too. So, all right, Cobb. I like that active. It's definitely hitting before the school year end. So, and that pending number.
Yep. So
Just tells me if
active.
you're not getting your unfair share, then it's your activities based, behavior, because it's very consistent. And if your business is inconsistent, it just means you're not staying in the game long enough on a daily basis to create that consistency.
And to that point, Rick, I think it is also who are you talking to? If we look at some of the other reports that we've seen when it comes to first time home buyers versus repeat buyers versus investors, the repeat buyers and the investors, they're having a lot more activity, but first time home buyers, because of interest rates and because of the prices continuing to go up, that market is a lot slower. And so being a lot more specific around who you're having conversations with. And also, if you're talking to first time home buyers, don't just completely disregard them. Have them on a campaign where you're consistently staying in touch with them. But just knowing that that market is a lot harder for people with the interest rates and the prices going up continuously.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right, let's go back. Let's look at Gwinnett, and then I want to get into our articles. And let's see. Let me hit this really quick. I'm I'm kind of watching here, which has been a feeling I've had, and I think all three of us have been in business long enough that real estate, it's like both an art and a science. And there's a science of knowing how to like do price per square foot and compare apples to apples and all that. But then there's the art of like, how does it just kind of feel? And I've always felt like we're going to have a later spring and a longer spring summer market. And I feel like we're kind of seeing that, as certainly in Fulton County, we're seeing how listings are coming up. Like normally I would have seen that like hitting really hard in like March and February, but I'm starting to see the listing volume come up. Now we're heading into May. So I hope that gives us all a longer selling season, which means keep on going. And but I'm loving how much is closing too. That's encouraging to see. That's a pretty nice jump in Gwinnett County from even similar time frame. Let's go back here, like almost 100 more from April to May, and then again, see almost again another just a little bit more than 100 more. So that's super cool to see. Thoughts?
I've been looking at that and kind of wondering how much of it has to do with people have been very hesitant to make decisions and just been waiting to hear from the feds as far as what they're going to do as far as decision making around interest rates. And I think with the reports coming out and it just looking more and more likely that they're going to hold off cutting those rates, people are starting to make decisions based off of the information that we received so far.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
a combination of seasonality that's probably kicking in as spring goes. People come out of hibernation. And to Richard's point, I think we've become kind of accustomed to the new norm interest rate, climate wise. Um, the fact that it bounced back up, one of the things that causes buyers to hesitate is the fear of missing out on a rate drop or where things are going. And that sort of confirmed it's probably going to be more steady, Freddie, for the rest of the year. And that if you find the right house, it's a good time to buy.
Yep. So I think even what we've been seeing, and we'll go back to some of this, confirms what we've been saying. So let me unclick that, unclick this. I do want to bring one little tidbit that we talk so much about is, this NAR settlement. It was saying July. Now they have said that all these new rules are going to come. We're going to be approved by the NAR leadership team to be effective August 17th. So it's an additional month before we're going to see, and some of the MLS's commissions not being advertised and having to have some kind of buyer agreement to show property. So that's super, another month to prepare and to keep going. Just news update. Let's go into, this is the one I think a little bit of what you're saying too, Richard, is like, I'm reading this article about, this is interviewing David Childers, who's the head of Keeping Current Matters. And he speaks in here about a lot of the things that were going into effect. It goes back to, who are you listening to? And if you're listening to the media, are you focusing on the fear or are you focusing on the facts? Because if you listen to his little video clip, he also speaks to what most buyers are saying when they've done surveys, is that they still want some sort of buyer representation. So they're not as they're maybe aware of the lawsuit, but they're not focusing on all the changes that it can mean for it. They still see the value and the need for our services. And with that, it kind of speaks to where the pricing trends are. And this is kind of looking at these charts. This is where they still see, even in the current market, that pricing is going to appreciate. These different companies say this. If you average all 7, we're still expected about a 2.6 appreciation for this year, as combining all of those different charts. And same thing, estimated home price performance is still going up as well. And that's their expectation. So if we focus on, the whole article talks about focusing on data. And when we present our value proposition and when we present to the market, is that we're talking to the client by focusing on data. And again, that whole thought process of worrying about when to buy. I mean, it looks like you should go ahead and just buy now, because they still predict prices to continue to go up and so forth. And then their number of transactions are supposed to be going up. This is where they're speaking of the 30-year fixed rate, that we're kind of in, if we get to that 6.5, we're going to see a lot more demand start to come up. So we've been hovering into here, which does affect the demand a little bit of affordability when the interest rates are high. And yet houses are selling. But again, going to how we've been talking about, if we start getting to that 6.5%, that's going to be a mindset shift and can change the way we do business. And that's where their predictions are. Thoughts on any of that from Rick or Richard?
Well,
and I
for
can pull
me,
it back up.
for me, I think it speaks to the NAR settlement, and I think I've given a lot of thought this year as far as our value. We've talked about value proposition so much in the Heart of Atlanta group, and I think one of the more important things is we can't just be somebody that's marketing to sell a house or putting a sign in the yard or just helping a buyer pick out a house on the MLS and getting them to the closing table. For us to be true professionals, we really do have to be consultants. And in that article and in the video clip, it talks about having an opinion, but a fact-based opinion. Really taking in the data and helping our clients make strong decisions, because there's so much uncertainty in the market. Our value really comes in helping them make strong decisions based off of the information that we see. So being able to break down the data and helping them understand the trends and make decisions for their family, whether they're buying or selling, I think it's more value in that than ever.
Yeah, I think if you polled buyers and you asked them, would you prefer to operate with representation or without in purchasing a home? I can't imagine 90% wouldn't elect to have representation. And to Richard's point, though, you've got to then illustrate value that helps support the psychology of that investment differently than ever before. And it's just a mind game, and it's also a positioning game, and it's a value proposition game. I can tell you, I bought a house in Florida a little over 3 years ago. I would not have bought it without a professional local realtor. I've been in the business almost 30 years. There's no way. There's no way. I can look at data, but I don't know historical trends. I don't know neighborhood, street to street. I don't know the evolution of the, social climate, where things are moving and going. It wouldn't have done it under any circumstance. So if a seasoned professional feels that way, I can't imagine that an informed consumer that recognizes the detriment and not having your professional services at their side, you just have to be hyper vigilant about promoting your value. It's that simple.
And I think one of the main points of that article, which I think is we get so insulated into our industry that we hear all the news, and the general buyer, the general public, the general seller is only paying attention to a portion of it because they have other things in their life to do. They
Right.
got kids and family and soccer and holidays and travel and work. So therefore, it says if we get into fear because we hear so much of the news, it affects our mindset. Whereas we stay with the fact. The fact is, and I think you're correct, Rick, it's like 89% of all buyers want representation, according to NAR. So the fact is buyers want us and they need us. And that's one of the main thing, and just continue to share our value there. Which kind of I'll move
Well,
us
then the
on to.
question is it true that I'm now going to have to pay commission? I think the answer to that question is you've always paid for the commission as a buyer. It's just
Mhm.
you're the one writing a check. It just happened to come out of what appeared to be the seller's bucket, but I'm here to navigate and negotiate a deal that's a win-win, regardless of how the money's moved around at the closing table.
Right.
Which I think you lead us in very well, because this one speaks to how we've gotten really good at sharing our value and articulating our values and fees when we're a listing agent. And when we work with buyers, we need to be able to do the exact same thing, articulate our value and why we're paid what we're paid. And it goes again into the mindset of it is there's perceived value, and there's as well. Like we understand that when we work, if we want a professional to truly do taxes, certainly when we're doing a complex situation, there's a price we pay when we go to like a CPA versus other tax preparer services like H&R Block, TurboTax, all that. We always have had those options. But if we increase our value, we can get paid significantly, much like a CPA would be paid. And other professions have that. And so just continuing there to show value will give our industry another level of perceived worth. And we go to certain industry, we don't even argue what we pay for them because we understand what they're worth. And then it's keeping before you. This goes into making sure we're presenting when we talk about all the different tools, which we do when we go show homes. And then if certainly the experience, much like you just shared, Rick, with yours, when you get to that local market, they do know streets, trends, and so forth. And so making sure you understand to be a really great buyer representative, understand what is the average days on market, original list to sales price ratios, average and medium sales prices, new listings versus pending listings, which we go over weekly. And then that's just improving your negotiation skills. Again, the thought process behind this is really good agents. They are great agents because they're actively listening to, and they're actively asking questions and actively listening to the answers.
Kelly, and
So
I think that is the main thing that agents have to keep in mind when we keep talking about commissions and our value as far as buyer agents. It has nothing to do with us as far as having our DNA in it. It is about them. It is what we do as far as solving their problems. So as far as understanding what their problem is in our consultations, asking better questions, getting an understanding of what are some of their concerns, what are some of their pains, and what are some of the landmines that they don't know about that we can solve for that makes it easier for them to go and reach their goals without having to deal with liabilities.
mm-hmm. And Richard, I think you're actually really great at this as well, is being a really active listener. It is like when you ask questions, you're trying to hear what they're expressing and what they may not be expressing, but you know they need to understand. And so all really great salespersons and consultants are really great question askers, and they actively listen. So I think continuing to improve those skills as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead, Rick.
all I was going to add, Richard, was just get good at asking deeper questions that have like follow-up questions to the question, because we're all kind of trained to give our first responder answers or first response answers. And, it's like when I ask you, hey, Richard, how are you doing today? Your answer is probably going to be, man, I'm great. I'm good. But it's probably just almost like a
General,
script. And
right,
then if I said, tell me more about what good is, and how
right,
does that feel when and what would it look like to better that 1 degree? That's a whole different conversation, and it shows candid caring. And that's where truth lives. It's the third question that probably lands on a more valid truth that then you can use for them, not against them, if that makes sense as a consultant.
for sure. And I think because real estate can sometimes be so commoditized, because there are, especially in Atlanta, so many real estate agents, that I think the consumers start to not understand how big of a deal the transaction is for their future. I mean, we're talking about one of their most important assets that's going to be transferring one way or the other. And sometimes they're like, oh, I'm just putting it on MLS. Oh, I just need this. I just need that. But they haven't really sat down and thought about like how big of a deal it is for the next 5, 6, 10, or just the rest of their life, as far as what that transaction could mean as far as their planning in the future.
Yeah, it can be life altering, and it often is. Good
Right.
point. But if you're not landing in that emotional space in the conversation where, the word motion is buried in the word emotion, this isn't X's and O's exclusively. You've got to connect the dots between the head and the heart. And that's a practice skill as well.
For sure.
It says the bold law, like logic makes us think and emotions makes us act. So connecting to that
Yeah.
heartstring will get us into action.
So here's a question. Does your marketing currently illustrate both angles, both sides of that coin? And so take a hard look and do some comparative analysis around, just because you think you are who you are, does the world see who you are in your social media feeds, your marketing feeds, your website, your branding, your collateral, all of the above. And especially, we've been talking about the conversation. Nothing's more important than the conversation.
I love that. I love that thought. Kind of an analysis is, does our marketing hit both the emotional side and the logical side? And
Because you're
so,
missing something if you're not, and you're not fully
mhm,
engaged.
yeah, that's good thought. So let's see. We got one more, and then let me hit this. Oh, we got a little bit of Atlanta Journal Constitutions. Let me go on with this one first. This talks again about so this one is, let's see, I got it all here. This is about the interest rates, and that again, this is where we go back to facts and not just feelings, that most people have come to accept that interest rates are going to remain high. And it does obviously affect some affordability for certain folks, but they've come to this conclusion. But what I love seeing down here, this little kind of a generational thing here, that okay, so baby boomers, millennials, Gen Zs, they're in a little bit of a housing tug of war. What I found fascinating is they said about 73% of boomers have been in their homes for 11 or more years, and most of them were built in the 80s. So they have, I guess that puts them in, older homes at this point, almost 40-year-old, depends what year. And so they're kind of caught in this place because they're, millennials they will need to upgrade this home. And it's like, are we seeing these boomers move out? This article also kind of speaks to the fact that this is where we can come in as our service, that with these older homes that may still be in its original condition, what are we doing to help improve them? Where with interest rates being high, these new buyers of these homes may or may not have the financial means to bring them to a 2024 kind of a look. And then that's where we're coming in as a professional, helping to solve some of these problems. So, or concerns. So thoughts on any of that regarding coming of age of the different home buyers and the potential home sellers?
I thought that article spoke a lot to the behavior of home buyers now and how long people are staying in their homes. I think with 80% of the market having interest rates lower than 6%, we really have to pay attention to that. I mean, inventory is one of the biggest issues, which is driving prices up. And so with people staying in their homes longer, we have to be even more vigilant as far as talking to home sellers and seeing what they need. Like you said, if there's renovations that they need, or if they're not going to do renovations, making sure we price the properties properly, to make sure it's reflecting the current value and not a house down the street that's fully renovated.
Yep.
Yeah, 100% agree that, this is a skills-based market. And as the expireds continue to grow and actives continue to grow, separation from the competition becomes more important than ever. And expecting a buyer to fully grasp vision for what it could be that's a big reach. Most buyers do not have vision. And so there's two sides to the equation. One is, how do you position yourself to win relative to competition? And my belief when I did a lot of listing back in the day was, I want to live in, what's the state, Missouri, the show me state. So I would throw my sellers in a car and go, look, I know you think yours is gold plated, and I might not even say it like that because I don't want to be insulting, but what do you think of this relative to yours? And reality shows up quick when they walk into a truly well renovated kitchen versus, they threw some granite on top of some old cabinets and painted them,
Right.
without a lot of character and quality. So A is getting it right on the listing side. B, you've also got to become, more skilled at finding deals and opportunities, and buyers need to know that, sometimes the house that lacks vision is the one that's the best opportunity for you if you can afford over time to renovate it. And I recently saw someone posted an image of a before and after of a cedar split level, which inherently to me, I didn't look at the first picture, kind of went, oh yeah, there's a lot of that going on in certain suburban areas. And then the after was like, oh my gosh, that was like colors, lighting, landscape, you know,
You can move in it.
totally different house with, different shutter style. I mean, it didn't take as much as, you would think. And so being able to promote that vision to your buyers might inspire another purchase opportunity where they might run past it otherwise. So this goes back to skills-based consultation, and understanding their capacity and motivation.
So going back to old-fashioned real estate, where you may have to preview some homes and perhaps take your client to preview with you
Yeah.
before
And then
you
you may have
come up
to
with a list
show them
price.
examples of what it could look like with a little bit of elbow grease and some invested time.
Right.
And that could be on the buy side too, both seller and buy side. So
100%.
all right, so we're hit at time. Any one sentence piece of advice of what someone needs to do this week? Richard, and then Rick. What's one piece of
Look
advice they
over
need to do this week?
look over what are you consuming? The article spoke to that. What are you consuming, and how are you taking the information that you're consuming, putting it into a context where your clients are able to understand and see your value and see that you're the person that they should listen to and talk to in terms of real estate.
Awesome. Rick.
Really quick, I would just go out and do some recon around the country and see who's doing a better job promoting that emotional energy with the context of intellectual energy in their marketing and in their website and in their social feeds. And, R&D is your best friend. And it's, obviously research and develop is one term, but also rip off and deploy. And if it's in another market and it's replicatable, it's usable for you. And just get really clear on your differentiation among, to Richard's point, the commoditized world of realtors. How do you separate?
Awesome. All right. It's 2 minutes after. Y'all have a wonderful week.
Thanks,
See ya.
guys. Thanks,
All
Kelly.
right.
Thanks, Richard.